Our top focus tonight on Gravitas is on that crucial meeting between US President Donald Trump and the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. A lot at stake, and it's a major push for peace in Gaza. We're decoding those developments in just a bit. Also on the show for you tonight, telling you all about Trump's long-range missile gamble. Is this the biggest escalation in the Russia-Ukraine war? We discuss. Gravitas special coming up for you. We are decoding the secrets of the deep tunnels where nuclear waste is buried. All this and more coming up.
Israel must finish the job. That is why we want to do so as fast as possible.
Gaza anytime soon.
US President Donald Trump hosting the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu at the White House. The two leaders are holding discussions aimed at breaking the deadlock. And this marks Netanyahu's fourth trip to Washington, by the way, since Trump returned to power in January. Let's get to these live images now, showing the two leaders just moments ago, underscoring the significance of today's meeting. Now, the backdrop to that meeting between the two leaders is rather grim. Nearly 2 years of the bloodshed in Gaza, the deepening humanitarian crisis, and mounting pressure from the international community for Israel, specifically for Netanyahu to end that war. And for Trump, the meeting is a stage to showcase his long-promised role as a broker of peace. Trump recently unveiled a 21-point framework designed to end the hostilities in Gaza, secure the release of the hostages, and disarm Hamas. And just yesterday, on social media, Trump hinted that a breakthrough could be close. Let's just quote from what the US president said. All are on board for something special. First time ever, we will get it done, quote unquote. The Israeli leader visiting Washington at a moment of increasing pressure and criticism, both domestically and internationally. Yet his tone has grown to be more combative, it seems. At the United Nations last week itself, Netanyahu pledged to continue the military campaign against Hamas and flatly rejected the push for a Palestinian state, a stance that in a way distances him from many Western allies. In Gaza, where more than 66,000 people have been killed in 2 years of fighting, Netanyahu showing little signs of halting the military operations. In fact, at his UN address, he vowed to finish the job against Hamas. Trump's patience, however, appears to be thinning. Once seen as Netanyahu's strongest ally, the US president is now pressing for concrete steps towards ending the war. The war in Gaza continuing. Just have a look at these visuals that we are getting to you of the debris and the damage at some of Gaza's hospitals as Israel increases that ground offensive. Palestinian medics saying that at least 18 people died across Gaza on Monday due to Israeli military operations. Casualties were seen being rushed to Gaza's main Al-Shifa hospital. And ahead of that meeting in Tel Aviv, An art installation on the beach captured public skepticism in a way. The piece portrayed Trump and Netanyahu with long noses, facing each other alongside the warning, quoting, "Don't be fooled again." And that message perhaps reflecting the doubt that many have over whether this latest round of talks will actually deliver more than just promises. Whether this White House meeting opens up a path towards peace or joins the list of yet another round of failed peace efforts remains to be seen, and the world will get an answer to that in just a while from now. Let's go straight across now to our correspondent Susan Tehrani, who's been tracking those developments very closely. Susan, to say the least, a very significant meeting, but we just also outline for our viewers the skepticism attached at the same time. It's important to highlight the backdrop against which this meeting is coming. Let's just first talk about the significance of these talks as well.
Yeah, significant indeed, Molly. As you mentioned, it's not only an opportunity for President Trump to showcase himself as a peace broker during this very long war, but also a challenge and perhaps an opportunity as Israel tests U.S. alliance and the Trump administration's alliance with Israel on how it will agree to this 21-point peace plan. Now, Netanyahu has expressed optimism that he hopes that they'll get there. One of his conditions, of course, and President Trump agrees with this, is the release of all hostages, dead and alive. But remember, the grim backdrop also comes from Hamas. Hamas has to agree to this plan as well for it to be implemented and for some sort of peace to prevail in the Middle East. So yes, there is a lot at stake. Most notably, Netanyahu met with a group that supports the annexation of the West Bank. President Trump just last week said that he's not going to let that happen. He does not support Israel's plan to do that. So that'll be also on the table as the two leaders talk.
Indeed, remains to be seen what really comes out of that crucial meeting, though. We're leaving it there for the moment, Susan. Of course, we will be keeping a close eye on the very latest coming in at this point. All right, let's also tell our viewers about these protests that are taking place. Remember, we've been telling you about the criticism, also the anger that's been associated, and coming at a time when we've been telling you about this backdrop playing out as well, and some of the skepticism attached to that meeting as well.
Fight.
And our next story is about the war in Ukraine. Efforts to reach that peace deal have stalled in a way. And now the US is considering Ukraine's request for Tomahawk cruise missiles, a weapon that, if delivered, would basically allow Ukraine to strike as far into Russia as Moscow. President Zelensky saying that this could force Russia to come to the table to end the war. And the US appears to be considering his request. On Sunday itself, US Vice President J.D. Vance told Fox News that President Trump would take the final call. And later that day, Trump's special envoy for Ukraine, Keith Kellogg, confirmed, saying, I'm quoting, "There is no such thing as sanctuaries," quote unquote. Now, this is Russia's so-called red line, remember, and President Putin has long warned the West against provoking Russia with long-range weapons. And Moscow responded on Monday by asking if, should Ukraine receive Tomahawks, the US would also provide targeting data. Tomahawk missiles have a range of around 2,500 kilometers. And if Ukraine does receive them, Moscow would fall within the reach, and a move that Russia is likely to view as a significant escalation. In the past, the US has refused Ukraine's request for long-range striking capabilities, first under President Biden and more recently as discussed under President Trump. In fact, Trump has said he wants to push both sides towards peace and has expressed frustration over what he calls Putin's reluctance to negotiate. But then would he risk crossing Moscow's so-called red lines? Like we said earlier, according to the US Special Envoy to Ukraine, it's a yes in a way. In a separate interview with Fox News, Keith Kellogg said, I'm quoting here, I think reading what Trump said and reading what the vice president has said, the answer is yes. Use the ability to hit deep. There are no such things as sanctuaries, quote unquote. Russia, meanwhile, raising its own set of questions on Monday. The Kremlin asked, if Ukraine gets Tomahawk missiles, will the US also provide the target data? The Kremlin spokesperson, Dmitry Peskov, saying Moscow is analyzing whether such missiles, if supplied, would be fired using American intelligence. And he warned that if the US was involved in targeting, it would make Washington a direct party in the war. But Peskov also tried to downplay the threat, calling Tomahawks no magic weapon that can change the situation on the front lines. Ukraine, however, is pushing hard. Zelensky has even asked the US to sell Tomahawks to European partners, who could then pass them on to Kiev. And on the battlefield, both sides reporting a heavy weekend of fighting. Russia saying its forces launched massive strikes on Ukraine's military facilities using long-range missiles and drones. And it claims to have destroyed hundreds of Ukrainian drones. Ukraine saying its defenses intercepted most of them, shooting down over 600 drones and missiles. The Ukrainian army also reporting 173 combat engagements in just one day. And even as the war rages on, President Zelensky is calling for a new strategy, basically, a joint aerial defense shield built with European partners. And he says if Russia loses the ability to strike from the skies, it will be unable to continue the war.
Ukraine proposes to Poland and all our partners to build a joint, truly reliable shield against Russian aerial threats. And this is possible. Ukraine can counter all types of Russian drones and missiles. And if we act together in the region, we will have enough weapons and production capacity for these. If Russia loses the ability to strike in the skies, it will be unable to continue the war.
Deep beneath the rocky island, which is located off Finland's west coast, lies a remarkable engineering feat, a facility designed to safely store the country's most dangerous nuclear waste for hundreds of thousands of years. The purpose of the project? Not just burying waste, it's also about securing the future. The facility sits 433 meters underground and inside some of the hardest rock on Earth. A rock formation that has been stable for nearly 2 billion years, in fact. Once placed, the holes are packed with a special swelling clay called bentonite. This clay basically seals the canisters in place, preventing water and movement from reaching the waste. After all the canisters are safely deposited, the tunnels themselves will be filled with more bentonite clay, and this clay will create a robust natural barrier that will protect the environment for up to 500,000 years, even through the ice ages, earthquakes, and other major geological changes. This project is managed by a company founded by Finland's nuclear operators and represents decades of planning and research. It will see one canister transported underground every week for the next 100 years. The Finnish approach has received strong local support, with the community trusting the scientists and benefiting economically from the project. But this is also in stark contrast to other countries, including the UK, for example, where plans for similar underground storage sites have faced delays and opposition from the local communities. The UK spends €4 billion every year to transport, store and secure radioactive material that has been accumulated for the past 70 years. From the past 70 years. The waste including irradiated machinery from decommissioned facilities dotted around the UK. The waste also including used uranium fuel and byproducts like plutonium. Some of this waste remains at the 36 civil nuclear sites around the country. But much of it, particularly older waste, has been transported to Sellafield on the Cumbrian coast. America bleeding through another weekend of carnage as 4 worshippers died in a Michigan church attack. 3 more gunned down at a North Carolina waterfront bar. In just 30 days, over 300 people have been killed, more than 1,300 injured across 300 separate shootings nationwide. We examine a notion where nowhere is safe, not churches, not bars, not schools. Take a look.
The death toll keeps climbing, and America cannot look away. Sunday morning worship turned into a massacre in Grand Blanc, Michigan. Thomas Jacob Sanford, a 40-year-old Iraq War veteran, rammed his truck through church doors before unleashing assault rifle fire on hundreds of worshippers. The church also set ablaze in the deadly attack.
The incident that we're going to talk about here today, as I said, was happened at 10:25 a.m. at the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, which is located at 4285 McCandless Road. During this incident, what we know right now is that a 40-year-old suspect from Burton, he's a male, he drove his vehicle through the front doors of the church. He then exited his vehicle, firing several rounds at individuals within the church.
Again in North Carolina, another gunman pulled up to the American Fish Company waterfront bar and opened fire from his vessel. Patrons dove for cover as bullets tore through the crowd enjoying a regular Saturday night.
As officers arrived and were on the way, we got multiple reports of an active shooter, possibly coming from a boat that was out in the intercoastal waterway.
US President Donald Trump says that the epidemic of violence must end. Across the US, the line between public safety and absolute chaos has vanished. The chilling truth is clear. In the United States, nowhere is safe. In the last 4 weeks alone, the data is shocking. Over 300 separate shootings have ripped through the country, leaving a trail of 300 dead and more than 1,300 people wounded. The data aggregates to 10 people dying every day. The sheer volume of violence is overwhelming the system, turning routine public spaces from schools to places of worship into active war zones. This is not a security crisis. It is a mass casualty event accelerating with terrifying speed. The constant thread connecting the bloodshed is the staggering saturation of firepower. American population of roughly 330 million owns an estimated 400 million guns. This unprecedented civilian arsenal of more guns than people in the country ensures that every argument, every moment of despair, and every act of malice can instantly escalate to mass slaughter. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Before we go on any further, here's a quick look at what else is lined up for you on the show tonight. Is America's so-called scientist exodus fueling China's rise? We get you the complete story. What is the volume-eating weight loss hack all about, and should you be trying it? We discuss all this and more coming up. Washington is racing against the clock. It's running out of time as the Congress and President Trump struggle to agree on government funding. And if no deal is reached by tomorrow, many federal agencies could close and non-essential government workers may be sent home without pay, affecting services that Americans pretty much rely on every day. The Senate is returning to Washington on Monday with no clear path to avoid a federal shutdown, as both parties continue to blame the other for the lawmakers' failure to keep the government funded. And if the Congress wants to avoid the shutdown, the Congress will have to approve a funding extension by the end of Tuesday. But as of Monday, Republicans and Democrats remain steadfastly opposed to the other party's plan, and neither proposal is expected to get enough votes. Here's where things stand as of now. Republicans are proposing to extend the current funding through November 21 to buy more time for bipartisan negotiations over full-year appropriations bills, and they have rejected the Democrats' requests for healthcare changes along with the extension. They argue that Democrats should accept the bill because it does not include any controversial policy priorities and would keep the government running. The Democrats, on the other hand, have offered a counter proposal, one that would extend funding through October 31. It includes several of their preferred policy changes, including around $1 trillion for Medicaid, a permanent extension of subsidies for people receiving health care, and restrictions on the president's ability to claw back spending approved by the Congress. And they say Republicans would be blamed for a shutdown because GOP leaders have so far refused to negotiate with them. At least 7 Democrats would have to vote to pass the funding extension. That is assuming all the Republicans voted for the GOP bill. But 2 Republican senators, Rand Paul and Lisa Murkowski, have said that they will be voting against it without changes. President Trump, meanwhile, is scheduled to meet with the leaders of both political parties after abruptly cancelling a similar meeting last week, citing Democrats' so-called unserious and ridiculous demands, quote unquote. And now here's where things have turned all the more heated. The White House Office of Management and Budget ratcheted up the pressure on the Democrats last week by directing federal agencies to consider mass firings under a shutdown that would not be reversed once the funding is restored. The Budget Office urged the agencies to prioritize layoffs in any program that is not funded by another law, such as Republicans' One Big Beautiful Bill enacted in July. And that does not align with Trump's priorities. But the Democrats say the threat of additional federal layoffs has not broken their resolve, in part because they believe the administration would seek to continue firing federal workers even if there was not a shutdown. And as the clock ticks away, all eyes in Washington and around the world and around the US specifically will be on the Congress and the White House, whether a deal can be struck in time. Shifting focus for now, Europe's old guard is cracking. Sweden is the latest pushing for atomic power. War clouds gathering as the unthinkable is unfolding. More and more European leaders now mulling acquiring nuclear weapons. The question is, how will the continent even cope up when even the most peaceful nations brace for atomic warfare?
The air in Stockholm is charged with existential dread. Sweden is now facing its moment of truth. Sweden is talking nukes. The question is blunt. Is the NATO commitment enough, or must Stockholm pursue the bomb itself? The debate is raging through Sweden's political sphere. Right-wing Sweden Democrats Party and center-right Christian Democrats Party, both part of the government, want Sweden to play an active part in a common European nuclear weapons strategy. The fear is contagious. Across Europe's eastern flank, the rhetoric is escalating. Nations like Poland are openly questioning the depth of the American security guarantee, given the rapid policy changes under the Trump administration. The same idea is echoing in Berlin as several German politicians are pushing for atomic power. Germany wants Britain and France must step into the breach if Washington falters. But again, the question stalks. Can France or the UK extend a genuine nuclear umbrella for Europe? Experts say that today's Russia shows no signs of planning to attack Europe in spite of the war hysteria. For many European nations, the stakes are existential. The shifts are abrupt. Nuclear complacency, long assumed dead, breathes again. Small powers once reliant on U.S. protectors now ponder armament.
A new trend seems to be emerging that perhaps carries significant impact as far as the global race for innovation is concerned. Many of America's brightest minds are leaving the country, and the exodus appears to be fueling China's scientific rise. Scientists once working in the US are now packing up their labs and moving to China. According to a CNN report, at least 85 researchers have left American institutions since early last year to join universities and labs in China full-time, with more than half making the switch this year alone. Experts are warning that this is not a temporary trend, in fact. Rather, according to them, it is expected to further accelerate, especially as the US funding for research reduces and restrictions on foreign talent tighten. While on the contrary, Beijing is pouring billions into building a science and technology powerhouse. These developments leading to several crucial questions. Can the United States still compete for global talent? And how exactly will this shift impact the race to dominate artificial intelligence, quantum computing, semiconductors, biotechnology, even advanced military technology? Experts are saying that the Trump administration's recent policies are intensifying the exodus of scientists and researchers. Washington is pressing for cuts to research budgets, increasing oversight of university labs, raising the cost of H-1B visas, using federal grants as leverage over institutions. And the uncertainty is reportedly rattling scientists across America. Many researchers, particularly those with ties to China, are saying they no longer feel secure about their future in the US, and China is working deliberately to attract more talent. The official newspaper of the Central Committee of the Chinese Communist Party, in a recent column describing China as a quote-unquote safe harbor for scholars, providing them with the platform to excel, quote-unquote. And Chinese universities are quietly approaching US-based researchers with offers, while others are openly advertising for them. Recently, financial commitment by both countries also reflecting this major push. In recent years, investment by China and the US with regard to research and development almost similar. In fact, the Chinese president last year said China must become self-reliant in science and technology and pledged to achieve that goal by 2035. And just last month, Chinese officials rolled out a new K visa designed to attract young scientists and innovators from overseas. With America's best minds in a way leaving and China's labs gaining, the balance of power in science and technology is perhaps shifting faster than Washington expected. Because, say it or not, a country's strength depends not only on its armies and factories, but also on its science and research. President Trump scheduled to attend an unusual gathering of U.S. generals and admirals at the military base in Virginia tomorrow. This event is organized by the Defense Secretary, Pete Hegseth. It is currently being looked upon as a part of a broader push to promote a new warrior ethos within the Pentagon. And Trump has described the meeting as a positive opportunity to showcase the strength and spirit of America's armed forces. Hundreds of military leaders expected to attend. Many details remain undisclosed. This secrecy has raised concern among the lawmakers. Military experts are also voicing concern over potential security risks and the possible politicization of the armed forces. Critics, including Democratic Senators Tammy Duckworth and Mazie Hirono, have condemned the event as a costly and disruptive political stunt that could undermine military readiness. And their concerns coming in the backdrop of increased military deployments, including National Guard troops being sent to several American cities. Across the military, there are 800 generals and admirals of all ranks, and many command thousands of service members. They are stationed across the world in more than a dozen countries and time zones. This crucial meeting, coming days after Trump has also recently ordered airstrikes on ships departing Venezuela, remember, which killed 17 people. Reports also emerging that the U.S. is considering strikes inside the South American country. As President Trump prepares for that meeting, questions also there about the impact of mixing politics and military affairs in a way in an already charged environment there. On to South Korea now, which has strengthened its skies with tougher defenses. The United States has positioned a cutting-edge air defense system on South Korean soil, nicknamed America's version of the Iron Dome. And recent images released by the Pentagon showing the U.S. Army Chief of Staff visiting the troops in South Korea. And among those pictures was a striking detail: a launcher from the Indirect Fire Protection Capability System, commonly known as IFPC. It is the first time that the U.S. has deployed the system at any overseas base. The system is basically designed to shield critical sites from cruise missiles, drones, rockets, mortar fire. The mobile launcher works with interceptors, creating another crucial layer of defense. And according to the U.S. Army, the system fills the gap between short-range defenses, Patriot missiles, and the powerful THAAD interceptors already in place across the region. Now, this development also confirming, in a way, reports that the U.S. Army intends to send a prototype launcher for the IFPC to South Korea in order to assess the feasibility of deploying its still experimental air and missile defense system across various global hotspots. This move is perhaps no coincidence, because both China and North Korea have recently showcased their modern drone technology. And earlier this month, at the 80th anniversary of the China Victory Day Parade, Beijing displayed many of its latest unmanned aerial vehicles, remember, flaunting advances in its arsenal. And just last week, the North Korean Supreme Leader Kim Jong-un inspected multi-purpose drones and surveillance aircraft in Pyongyang. He reportedly termed their deployment and their development a top priority to prepare for modern warfare. The US Army has described the IFPC as a critical shield for forward bases and essential infrastructure. Its deployment in South Korea signaling Washington's intent to strengthen its posture in the region, while also showcasing that the Pentagon is evaluating just how quickly such technology can be integrated into the real-world hotspots. South Korea's skies are no longer just guarded. They are fortified with America's newest shield. Let's now also talk about the latest in the Russia-Ukraine war and Europe's role in it. Despite the extensive sanctions and support for Ukraine, European countries continue to import significant amounts of Russian oil and gas. So Europe is effectively funding Moscow's military operations. According to the Center for Research on Energy and Clean Air, EU nations still pay nearly 1 billion euros monthly for Russian energy. When Russia invaded Ukraine in early 2022, Europe imported roughly 25 million tons of Russian fossil fuels monthly. Since then, EU imports have dropped by about 90%, but ongoing purchases, primarily natural gas, totaling 965 million euros in August 2025 and over 16.8 billion euros last year alone. Natural gas forms the largest share of EU imports from Russia. France, Belgium, Spain, Slovakia and Hungary have been the top buyers over the past year, reportedly, with France alone importing 6.7 million tons. Long-term contracts and the need to protect consumers from rising energy costs also complicated those efforts to shift away from Russian supplies. Secondary trade routes further complicating the picture. Energy products often change hands multiple times before reaching the final consumers, making tracking difficult. And while the UK ceased direct Russian oil and gas imports in 2022, it continues to import refined products like jet fuel that were processed in India or Turkey. And this loophole, in a way, has led to an estimated 510 million euro contribution to Russia's economy since the war started. The UK's shipping and insurance sectors, meanwhile, playing a significant role in transporting Russian liquefied natural gas, with 76% of Russian LNG exports carried on UK-owned or insured vessels since the invasion. The reality of the situation is clear in a way. India facing pressure from the West for its purchase of Russian oil, but when Europe buys Russian energy, directly or indirectly, it is energy security. But when India does it, it's made to look like India is funding Russia's war in Ukraine. Moving on for now, 6 months after the deadly Pahalgam terror attack, a resilient return is underway. Jammu and Kashmir pulling back the curtain on its breathtaking beauty, with 12 more jewels in its crown now accessible to the world. WION's Idris Lone reporting from Srinagar. Take a look.
The silence has lifted after a painful pause. The echoes of nature not fair resound. Lieutenant Governor Manoj Sinha's announcement is more than a policy shift. It's a powerful statement of resilience and return. With 16 destinations already thriving, the addition of 12 more from the misty slopes of Aru Valley to the historic Century of Command Post swells the total open to 28. This isn't just a recovery, it's an acceleration. Local stakeholders, once gripped by uncertainty, now breathe a collective sigh of relief and optimism. Their registers are ready.
I will highly appreciate the decision taken by the Honorable LG of reopening the destinations, because you see people were thinking that is it safe to go to Kashmir or not? Why are the destinations closed? Is there any problem? Is there any threat of terrorism? This is the wisely decision taken by the Honorable LG, and that too in a Puja holidays, upcoming season, followed by winter destinations.
Autumn is breaking, painting the chinar trees in hues of fire and gold. This season, they predict, will be the turning point. Tourists eager to share the visual feast are already excited.
I'm very happy. That's amazing. I'll get to, see all the places. It's good. It has been very safe. Everything is safe. The security has been taken care of. So it's great to visit Kashmir anytime now.
Kashmir was the only place left to be visited, and when I came here it felt like home. Not only the safety and security, I think the thing they call Kashmir, the hospitality, I used to read it and I used to think that might be overrated, right? But when I came here, I think only when you come here only you can feel that Kashmir. The food, the hospitality, the people, the places, everything, I think is very difficult to express here.
The administration's careful balance between security and accessibility offers reassurance to the visitors after months of disruption. The reopening signals not just a step towards normalcy, but a strategic push to revive Jammu and Kashmir's vital tourism economy, supporting livelihoods and showcasing the region's year-round appeal.
First, 16 such tourist destinations were reopened earlier, and now 12 more have been reopened by the government of Jammu and Kashmir. Around 20 places still remain closed across Jammu and Kashmir. Meanwhile, the tourist stakeholders have welcomed this step and have also appealed to the government of Jammu and Kashmir that all the tourist destinations should be thrown open before the winter season. With video journalist Firoz, Idris Loan for WION World is One.
Switching gears for now, gold prices climbed to a fresh record high on Monday, extending a run of 6 straight weekly gains. In fact, the metal is up 43% since January, making 2025 its strongest year since 1979, when bullion jumped 126% during the Iranian Revolution. Silver also surging to its highest in 14 years, while platinum and palladium rallying more than 2%. The rally also reflecting mounting investor demand for safe havens. Markets weighing the risk of a US government shutdown, political tensions, the uncertainty over Federal Reserve policy. Gold is benefiting from the falling confidence in the US dollar, which has dropped more than 9% this year itself. Lower interest rates adding to the appeal of non-yielding assets meanwhile, while the central bank buying has reinforced long-term demand. Data also showing record inflows into bullion-backed ETFs, pushing holdings to their highest since 2022. Analysts at Goldman Sachs and Deutsche Bank expecting the rally to extend further. The surge in precious metals also highlighting tightening supply conditions across markets. Lease rates for silver, platinum and palladium have spiked well above the normal levels, reflecting years of deficits and fears of new US tariffs on critical minerals. Barclays calling gold a good value hedge against the Fed-related risks, while Bank of America is noting it remains under-owned, with investors seeking protection from inflation, trade wars and the political shocks. Analysts see no alternative to gold as the ultimate safe haven asset. In a remote corner of the Arctic, nature is reclaiming its territory in a way. Polar bears making themselves at home inside an abandoned Soviet research station off Russia's far northeastern coast. Drone footage captured by a travel blogger showing the majestic creatures poking their heads out of windows and even snapping at the drone itself. Take a look. Have you heard of something called volume eating? It's a new weight loss hack that's got social media buzzing reportedly. What is it all about? What does one need to do really? And what is being said about it? Let's get straight into it. And as the name suggests, the key here is the volume. To put it simply, eating big amounts of low-calorie food items, which would be high volume or high bulk, basically high in water, fiber, or air content. And if that sounds puzzling, let's tell you which food items would fall in that basket. Just to name a few, whole grains like oats, brown rice, fruits, vegetables, lean proteins like beans, low-fat dairy products. What you need to avoid if you are interested in following this trend is items like red meat, foods that are heavily processed or high in sugar and fat, just to name a few. But what's the background here really? How did this trend come into being? Let's break it down for you. The practice basically means the foods increase the feeling of fullness, to put it simply. It's also known as volumetrics diet. That was created in 2000 by a professor at Pennsylvania State University in the US. Does it work? Is the immediate question. According to a UK study published in May 2018 in the Journal of Nutrition, volume eating low-calorie foods increased the feeling of fullness and decreased hunger in a way. But there are some cons as well, reportedly. For instance, you could end up accidentally leaving out or neglecting food categories like proteins or carbohydrates, which are important for long-term health. But if you can ensure that you have a balanced diet, you can avoid nutritional deficiencies, reportedly. And there could also be a risk of disordered eating. Consult experts is the advice. Whenever and wherever you are confused, it's best to follow their advice and adopt any kind of food practices accordingly. Team India has clinched the Asia Cup title for a record-extending 9th time after defeating Pakistan for the 3rd time in the tournament. But once again, there was a desperate attempt from Pakistan to try and steal the spotlight. And as usual, it backfired majorly. India and Pakistan faced each other for the 3rd time in the tournament. The result was the same, an Indian victory. But this time, Pakistan were able to put up a fight in a way. The game turned on its head by one of India's young stars, Tilak Varma, producing the best innings of his life to take India to a 5-wicket victory. The 22-year-old scored an unbeaten 69, giving the perfect response to Pakistan's pre-match chest thumping. But it wasn't Tilak Varma who hit the winning runs. It was Rinku Singh who did the honors, hitting the only ball he faced during the tournament for a boundary. And it seems like his finishing touch was written in the stars. Before the tournament started, Rinku had written the words, "Win, run," on a card. And his wish was fulfilled in the most thrilling fashion. It was a brilliant win for India, one that cemented the team's status as the undisputed best side in Asia. It was also the perfect reply to the Pakistan Cricket Board and its players, who had been attempting to mock the Indians with wild gestures and baseless claims in reference to Operation Sindoor. But the final result was once again an Indian victory, as was pointed out by the Indian Prime Minister immediately after the match. Prime Minister Modi wrote, and I'm quoting, "Operation Sindoor on the games field, outcome is the same, India wins." Pakistan is not known to take defeats too well, be it in sport or on the battlefield. And once again, the behavior of the PCB chief was a disgrace to the sport. India had made it clear that the team would not take the trophy from Naqvi, who is not only the chief but also the interior minister of Pakistan. It was something that everyone saw coming, except Naqvi himself, it seems, who let his ego get the better of him and ultimately got majorly embarrassed. Naqvi refused to let any other dignitary hand the trophy to India. Not just that, he left with the trophy just to ensure that India did not get their hands on it.
I think this is one thing which I have never seen since I started playing cricket, since I started following cricket, that a champion team is denied to get a trophy. I mean, that too a hard-earned one. It's not like आसानी से हो गया सब, but it was a hard-earned tournament. We were here since 4th, played a game today, 2 back-to-back good games in 2 days. I feel we deserved it.
Despite the absence of the trophy, India celebrated their much-deserved victory in a grand manner, a fitting response to another petty stunt by Pakistan. Shifting focus for now, India celebrating Durga Puja, one of the country's biggest festivals, millions celebrating the homecoming of goddess Durga with music, lights, festive feasts. The multi-day festival featuring street celebrations and devotional worship of idols in elaborate pavilions known as pandals. Take a look. On that note, it's a wrap on this edition of Gravitas tonight. This is me, Molly Kampir, signing off. Thanks very much for watching.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening. As we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
Where darkness hides behind every corner. Where the truth is stranger than fiction. A show that dives deep into the stories which shock and mystify. Unsolved murders. Psychopaths who defy explanation. International war crimes. And millions swindled in financial fraud. The victims, the accused, and the sinister plot. Prime Crime is your front row seat to darkness.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets. WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide, because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION, World is One.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. To some, it's an extreme ideology. To others, it's the very soul of India. To some, it's rebellion. To others, it's a principle of nation building. Coming soon to challenge perceptions in RSS Centenary Year, Kesariya at 100.
Welcome to WION Pals. We are glad you're watching WION World is One. I'm Eric Kunzoka. The headlines. President Trump says he's very confident of a Gaza deal as he welcomes Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to the White House for talks on a US-led peace plan. This is the fourth meeting of the duo in the past 9 months.
President Trump, are you confident, sir, there'll be peace in Gaza anytime soon? And the 21-point plan, is everyone